following announcement has been paid for by the New World Order.
But you guys are my first mod, and I want to brand you all. If I ever meet any of you, I am going to put a hot knife here. I'm just going to do that.
Listen, it's a paramount time to wake up. Always remember, don't forget to be the change, bro.
What we do when we get hungry? We chase people. No, wait.
Make it so.
Ride the walrus. We need,
Swear to me.
The following announcement has been paid for by the New World Order.
But you guys are my first mod, and I want to brand you all. If I ever meet any of you, I am going to put a hot knife here. I'm just going to do that.
Listen, it's a paramount time to wake up. Always remember, don't forget to be the change, bro.
What do we do when we get hungry? We chase people. No, wait.
Make it so.
Ride the walrus. We need,
No time better than now to start, right? Alright, let's no time better than now to start, right? Let's get with it. Alright, so just want to start off by saying thanks for coming, and I wanted to just kind of wing it because I couldn't really motivate myself to do an all-out just record by myself video, so I figured I'd force myself into doing something on it because I just get tired of hearing people say that the Sphinx resembles anything but a dog, really. I mean, if you have a large breed dog, you kind of, yeah, I mean, you know. you can see how they lay down in nothing like I usually see cats laying down, even though I'm not necessarily a fan of cats, but regardless, I'm going to start off by pulling up a picture here of the earliest photo of the Sphinx that I'm pretty sure this is the oldest anyway that is out there. Let me switch scenes here. Alright, and you can see here this is before anyone in modern times started putting their paws into restoration and whatnot, and as you can clearly see, the paws are made a lot like a dog's, and the dogs have the dew claw and count the number of what's the word, phalanges? I don't know what it is on the dog or an animal, but 4. And cats, they have all 5 of their claws because the dogs have the dew claw back there too as well. And well, I'm gonna actually go ahead and play a video here with straight from Chuck, which I should probably go back and rewind my brain a little bit, since I'm a little I just kind of dove into it from playing games and streaming that a minute ago. But Chuck over at CF Apps, most of this, well, pretty much all of this is to memorialize his work, because late Chuck was someone that I woke up to every day and caught up on his morning video, which usually was like 5:36 in the morning, something like that. And it was something I look forward to every day. And some point during the COVID phase of life, if I can even say that, who cares, we lost Chuck, and I am not even sure what happened to him, but his work was probably more attentive than most, and I just wanted to kind of help preserve his work and just, you know, make sure that more people know about it. And his channel is CF Apps 7865. It's in the description, I'm sure. And let's see. Well, that's his channel anyway. It's still up. I'm gonna switch scenes back here. and go back to the Sphinx here. And I got a video here for you that he did up, and I think it's a good place to start.
Take everything above the collar, and remove it.
This is him in Vegas.
What do you have left? You can see perfectly how the head that we see on the Sphinx was carved from the shoulder region. The headdress would fit perfectly with that. You can see right here. That's the headdress area.
Even Ray Charles could see that. Once it gets pointed out, it's
And that's the face area. You can see it perfectly. How the eroded monument we have at Giza today, in ancient times, was ancient Anubis. The head is gone, and if you don't think they could get a head on this monument, well, they built the Great Pyramids, and I laugh at anybody who says that they couldn't do that. And remember, what's on top of the Sphinx head that we see today? A hole. What would a hole be used for? As a base support for the head.
Exactly.
There's the Sphinx that we see today. Everything above the collar gone.
Now, I don't see how anyone would need more evidence than that, but considering the community and the random stuff that can be pulled out of seemingly thin air these days and people follow it, I have got some supporting details to give you. Alright, let's start off. Well, give me just a second there. I gotta pull it up because everything was malfunctioning as per usual whenever I started this, but here's a good one. Alright. And yeah, I'm probably gonna polish this off into an easy to digest version with no nonsense, no built in and all that later, but yeah. Alrighty.
I think this whole valley was water at one time. If I back out here, you can see where the modern Nile is, right over here. Personally, I think when these sacred structures were built, the whole valley was filled with water from one end.
Now, this isn't necessarily related to supporting evidence right here, and some of the stuff I played might not be, but I just thought more facts on the general area and the topic at hand would be nice, since my main purpose of this is to memorialize and make sure more people know about Chuck's work and send people that way, and give a nice stepping stone towards the topic in general.
To the other. Now, I don't care about giving you the exact right answer. I just care about giving you the right evidence here. And a lot of people say, well, this is just a great mystery and we'll probably never solve it. Well, I say that's a bunch of hogwash. We have more information at our fingertips now than we ever have. So let's get this mystery solved. This is a great question. From highly eroded Sphinx here is guarding the most sacred necropolis in Egypt, and I think it's time we just got in touch with the ancient texts. They tell us exactly what this monument is or was a long time ago. The Temple of Anubis upon his hill. That's what the translation.
Now, the Temple of Anubis upon his hill is also known as Tep2F, and I have not heard literally any other scholars on the subject or anyone that just does streams even mention that except for myself, and I feel like that's pretty important. And I mean, you hardly even hear people talking about the land before dynastic Egypt being called Rosteau, and that I feel like that should be like, the flag they pull out in football, like, yeah, in the video games it looks like cheese. I digress. Yeah, I think someone should pull out that flag and throw it at all these people talking about the subject and never once mentioning Rosteau. Now, yeah, that's
Is and the oldest sacred texts about ancient Rosteau, which is Giza today. And this whole area out here with the buildings was water. These structures were built here.
Now, actually, I'm gonna play a little more.
But here today, the sands of time have kind of covered up history here. The true form of these original structures is lost, but they are built with such big blocks that still a lot of it remains today. This temple was called the Temple of Tep-2F right here. And people say, well, how can you think these structures were built in the early 9000 BCs, but still call this Anubis? That's a very Egyptian thing. Well, do you believe the Egyptian dynasties started in the first dynasty, like Zahi says? Or are you going to listen to the dynastic Egyptians themselves?
And here in a second, I'll go to what the dynastic Egyptians had to say. I do want to, I want to highlight like the fact we need to go back and listen more to, or read more into the words that the people themselves said. The dynastic Egyptians, like, pretty much unanimously all stated that those structures were there before them. They inherited them, just like the temples in Mayan lands and everywhere else in in the Americas and pretty much everywhere else. It's quite an interesting thing, and I want to make it clear now, the only thing I'm disagreeing with Graham Hancock on at this point in time is that the Sphinx is not a lion. It is definitively Anubis. Even the ancient Egyptians stated such. So,
The following
Who say their civilization is a legacy civilization and their king's list goes way back, a lot further back than 3100 BC. So are you going to listen to the experts or listen to the best evidence and the Egyptians themselves? Well, that's all up to the individual, I guess. As I said before, I believe what we call the Nile River today, back about 11,000 years ago, extended all the way from the eastern valley ridge all the way over to the west side, to right in front of what we call the Sphinx today. And this was a harbor right in front of here. You see these ruins right out.
what most people also don't realize is the majority of all the truly ancient sites in Egypt are actually on the Giza Plateau, and the Giza Plateau extends much further beyond just where the Great Pyramid and Sphinx is located.
In front of here, we have no idea what's under here. There's stuff buried way down under the sand, and that just hints that this place is very, very ancient. We have texts saying 11,600 years ago from Plato that something really bad happened. Great civilization sank to the bottom of the sea.
And don't forget what, oh goodness, I'm first brain farted of the stream. Don't forget about what, oh goodness, I hate it when this happens. I got the book over here, Edgar Casey, gosh, why did I brain fart on that one? Don't forget what Edgar Casey said about all the Hall of Records being under the Sphinx's paw, which there's plenty of supporting evidence that there's a lot more under, or inside, I should say, of the plateau than what standard history, archaeology, all that jazz states.
We have Egyptian and Mayan texts saying the survivors came to these parts of the world and started civilization again. That would have been about 11,000 years ago, based on what we know, what we've learned over the last 20 years, that something really bad did actually happen in that time frame. I think the survivors built these structures right here. If you ask about Atlantis, I think this is closer to Atlantis, what we see in the Giza Plateau today, than the Egyptian civilization, that is for sure. Anubis, as we call him today, that is a Greek word. There is an original name for this jackal-type guy.
And I wanted to add that it's pretty much mind-blowing that Cleopatra, the last I think, like, queen of Egypt, the only, regardless of what she was, her existing is closer to our existence than it was the builders of these structures. Just for like a reference of scale, they're quite old.
That was the original god of Giza. Says he is the shrine and he sits in the divine booth. Second definition of booth is enclosure. The ancient Egyptians tell us exactly what this structure was, but that's not the meaning of this video, or that's not the purpose of this video, just how old this structure was. But since the so-called experts have their heads stuck in the sand here about looking at all the evidence, I think it's important what was found very deep down here. Now I'm going to play a clip from John Anthony West. I'll be sharing it.
All right, yeah, and I actually do want to include that clip later on here. Well, probably in just a few moments. We'll get back to it, but I just find it completely mind-blowing how easy it is to have history replaced, and it's people like Chuck that truly do justice to real history. It's really a travesty that the not only corporatocracy that runs the world now, but just governments, kingdoms, civilization, it only takes 2 generations, maybe even 1 generation, from all that we've seen in the last couple of years politically and socioeconomically, but it doesn't take long at all to completely change history. And it's up to the people that truly care about what happened to preserve that, and Chuck was definitely one of them. But I'm gonna go ahead and play a couple clips here at the end of John Anthony West, and I might cut in if I feel like inputting something, but this is probably going to be the tail end of the broadcast. So I didn't want to keep you all too long, and I am going to polish off an official version that doesn't have the live format. That's all information, no, all meat and taters, and no like filler. So with that said, I'm going to pull up what I have left for you here.
Few clips from a few different videos on the Sphinx subject. But let's just listen to John Anthony West, what was found. Pretty deep, right down.
Actually, before I do John Anthony West, I forgot. I have one other video for y'all here. And it is Chuck's 10 reasons why, well, let's see. Yeah, it's Chuck's 10 reasons that the Sphinx was Anubis. I almost forgot about it.
Hey everybody, I have a video here for you today, and this has been suggested by a few people. I've had a message from a friend and a few others saying that they wish I would make this video, and I really need to make this on a shrine like that, and say, well, it's a lion, and I just get a little frustrated. Discuss that with anybody who wants to take it up with me. I think this must have been about 5 years ago, 6 years ago. We never had a
More
true
now.
history,
Come on.
and it's
Sorry, I didn't get this clip ready for you.
and I really wanted to look into this, and especially around a crude comparison, you can see perfectly where the Sphinx today, eroded over time, could have very well been the great god Anubis, because if you just take off the head of what we see today, that is the eroded body of Anubis. That is not how the ancient Egyptians depicted a lion. The back would have been different, and I just think that is important to start out with. Now, we are going to go on here. Now, reason number 2, it's very simple, and just by this alone, you could say the Sphinx was probably Anubis in its original form, and it's because Anubis was the original god of Rosteau, which is ancient Giza. So what do? You put up the god of your, or a monument of your original god. That just makes perfect sense. A huge clue to the origin of this great monument. Let's go on to reason number 3. Now, reason number 3 This is Tuts Anubis Confirms the Hall of Records. And in this video from a few weeks ago, this is the only intact Anubis shrine coming from a pharaoh's tomb. Tut's tomb was not looted, so we get a story coming directly from 3,500 years ago, and it's everything we suspected about the Sphinx being on top of something secret and chambers below it. This confirms everything that we suspected about the Sphinx. And going on here, the next reason is the art coming from the ancient Egyptian tombs, the important tombs, where important stories were laid out. When looking for a lion, somehow being connected to the Sphinx, everything you find, all the art, has the great god Anubis in the posture of the Sphinx, coming from many different dynasties, coming from the most important tombs, honoring the great god Anubis on his shrine. It's obvious this comes from the 4th dynasty. Tut's tomb, it's clear what the ancient monument was, and here connects it directly to Orion. It's all about Anubis. And in this video, I believe this is reason number 5, the anthropomorphic gods of Egypt. The Egyptians looked at the animals as really their version of nature and God, and it's what these animals did and represented and what the Egyptians saw that became part of the myths, or the reason these were chosen for anthropomorphic gods. And the great god Anubis was seen perching at the edge of cemeteries, at the edge of the desert, guarding them. So that is exactly why the Sphinx was Anubis in its original form. Reason number 6, and this is really one of the most important, looking at these ancient Egyptian texts that were copied from much earlier texts.
Now, if you were wondering where I got the whole Tep2F thing from, or how to spell it, this right here would be it.
What does it say? It says that there is a giant Anubis who is foremost of the Westerners guarding the Giza necropolis, and it's clear it talks about Anubis on his shrine, and there are other things. His name is Dogface, his size is huge, from the coffin text.
I'm pretty sure this comes from the Egyptian Book of the Dead, by the way. I'm not 100% on that, but I think he mentions it. If not, let me know in a comment, and I will locate it and clarify and correct whatever.
And it's clear, and I just think this is a total failure of the historians to give you the true story of what this original monument was. Reason number 7 in this video here, proof the Sphinx was Anubis. There was a tomb made for a dog, a royal dog, probably a guardian dog, and this dog was given a special burial by a pre-dynastic king, just because the king isn't identified, and I think I know who he is from the Turin's king list. He is a pre-dynastic king, and the only reason why he says he gave his special royal dog a special burial out in front of the Great Pyramid is so that the dog could be buried before the great god Anubis, telling us from pre-dynastic times what the original shrine was, from an ancient Egyptian king himself. Reason number 8 is the alignment of the great monument, and there is only one alignment. And people have said, boy, Graham Hancock isn't going to like this, or so you're disagreeing with Graham Hancock. And let me be very clear, I love Graham Hancock's work, and I would not be doing ancient research videos if I had not read Fingerprints of the Gods. I like Mr. Hancock's work. It is groundbreaking, it is important.
And I feel the same, just for reference. And by the way, I wanted to mention, I have spoken publicly and mentioned that I believe that the Sirius cluster, also known as the dog star, Sirius, that the Dogons were onto something, and I think we should look more into them for more on the Egyptians, and I had mentioned publicly at some point in the past that I believe that the Great Pyramid and the three pyramids there line up to better match the Sirius cluster of stars than Orion's belt. However, I cannot find the source I had on that information, and once I do, I may make that statement publicly, but since I can't find it at the moment, I'm going to agree with Graham Hancock on that part for now. But I personally believe that there's a chance that the Great Pyramid and Sphinx enclosure are much older than the dating given based on it being aligned with the Orion's belt. But I'll get more on that later once I am able to check my work, because I think the video that I thought might have been by Chuck, but at this moment in time I'm thinking it might have been on Mystery History Channel or something to that effect, and I'll have to check up on that and find the clip and do the homework on it before I present anything definitive there. But for now, I'll agree with Graham.
But this is just one thing I disagree with him with. That's all. I think his 10,500 alignment, I think all you need is the pyramids and the Nile River to make that alignment. He didn't need to throw in the Sphinx's align looking at Leo. I just thought I would talk about that. But the true alignment is to the spring equinox sunrise, the day that signifies resurrection. Anubis is the preeminent god, the first god of resurrection.
And also, the Great Pyramid itself signifies the sunset, and well, I might give that explanation in another episode.
Rosteau, ancient Giza. It's very simple. Reason number 9, the paws. From what we can see from photos from the 1800, these are not lion's paws. Lion's paws look different than the Anubis paws, and it's clear, and I just show some lion's paws, but it's clear what we see here from old photos, and here you can see the brickwork covering the original structure, but it's obvious that these are Anubis paws. The ancient Egyptians, if it was a lion, they would have put lion's paws on it. Simple as that.
Ray Charles could see
and
that.
Finally, reason number 10, and probably the most important reason, is from an ancient text. I believe this comes from the Papyrus of Ani, part of the Book of Coming Forth by Day, the chapter on ancient Rosteau, which is present-day Giza.
It hurts my eyes to see white YouTube. I always forget that it even comes in that flavor.
It talks about the Lord of his divine temple
Blinded.
before you reach the Great Pyramid, and that text identifies this temple as the temple of Tep-2F, which is Anubis on his hill. The ancient Egyptians themselves, the early ones, identify the ancient temple as the temple of Anubis on the hill. Proof alone what this ancient structure was originally, but taking all 10 of these reasons, there is only one conclusion you can come to, and that it was originally Anubis. And I just think this is a great failure of historians not to bring you the true story of this great monument.
Travesty.
I hope you thought this was interesting, and you all have a very nice day.
I will always get teared up a little bit knowing that I'm not going to wake up and see an excellent mind-bending video that ends in hearing that little outro that he always does, or did. Wow, definitely misspeaking one step after the other, but yeah, I don't know. I was trying to not get the feels whenever I let the end of that video play his outro there, like, because, well, you get what I'm saying. All right, let's see here. Now I am going to be doing probably the next episode on this. I'm going to be doing how the supposed unfinished pyramids never were intended to be pyramids in the first place. It's a travesty how one of them actually is even being used by the Egyptian government as a trash dump, and the property is technically military property, but it's, you know, the giant stairways in the ground and the rose granite, alabaster like lined underground rooms, and there's some mind-bending stuff there. Like, I might actually use a thumbnail in the polished version of this video as the one in which I'm speaking of specifically. I gotta find that real fast. I just think it's such an amazing picture. Let's see here. Switch back over. Womp womp. Now this right here, I feel like this picture is astounding. This is at the bottom of one of those staircases that I'm not sure if this is the one that, off the top of my head anyway, that is being used by the government as a trash bin, but this is a picture back when it was discovered. And the that big thing with the nubbins on it, you know, anyway, it was found on top of that hole, and I think it's travesty to archaeology and archaeologists worldwide that, you know, things were not recorded and shown as they were discovered in a proper scientific and archaeological manner. And it makes me want to drop kick someone in the beak, like, no joke. And that's why I'm gonna be talking on that topic next time. And then I also have this right here. I believe this is a very important relief. And as you can see there, I actually came across this in the pursuit of proving Anubis to be who he was, but I also see this as proof that the Great Pyramid is a gateway to another place of some sort, and among other things maybe. But that right there is Anubis. Make sure you can see my cursor, yeah. And that is significant of the Great Pyramid, and they usually appeared together. In this instance, it's significant of a gateway, and whether, I'm not sure the original exact meaning of this. I don't remember the explanation off the top of my head. However, I have this theory that, considering this is a gateway and it doesn't have the same symbology, maybe this right here is signifies that it's another place whose perspective we're in, as signified by the doorway possibly, and maybe it's the perspective from their world looking at ours, and that the symbology there is signifying that it was looking in on our world, you know, with the Anubis and the Great Pyramid there. And maybe it's like looking from within or through another portal from another place at ours, you know, showing sort of a mirrored perspective. And I mean, I feel like I'm onto something there, but, you know, with all the experiences people have had laying in the sarcophagus in the king's chamber there, and them seeing other worlds. And then there's a Robert, I'm losing it, I forget his name. I'm not talking about Duval or Temple or any of them. I'll just have to talk about it more whenever I get to that episode, because I'm sure I'll bring him up. But it definitely supports the whole King's Chamber and Great Pyramid and all that stuff being a way to travel elsewhere. Where? I don't know. Could be the center of the Earth, could be another dimension, could be elsewhere in the galaxy. I couldn't tell you, but I'm pretty positive that the sun and the Great Pyramid and things such as that are not what we believe them to be entirely, especially since we've even been lied to about the sun. It's a giant plasma ball. It's not a big burning like reactor of sorts, like natural reactor. It's so much more than that. Just like I'm about 90% positive the core of this planet is a plasma ball as well. it's interesting, really, what could be out there. But I'm going to end this one on some footage straight from John Anthony West on the subject, and I'll see you guys later.
Back in the 70s, or somewhere around there, early 70s, maybe even 60s, the weather, whatever the people are who test for water levels, you know, water table levels, were doing a test here, and they drilled down. They were checking, I guess, something of the sort, taking core samples, whatever, and they drilled down here and got down, I think, 22 meters, so that's 70 feet, and hit a piece of granite. That is significant because granite, only granite in Egypt comes from far to the south in Aswan. So they hit a piece of granite, and they think now, because you see this excavation stuff here is relatively recent, and they think that's part of an old harbor that stretched from the Nile to here. I'm not sure of that. But the granite is interesting because it means that either, if this were a harbor, something fell off into and the harbor, I mean, it's 22 meters, so it's deep. So something is there, or it's part of a structure that's that deep, which would really be significant. I mean, that would be a major discovery.
But I think that's highly interesting. How do you explain granite found almost 65, 70 feet below the sand here? I think this place in its original form would just blow us away. What it actually looked like when it was first built.
Alright, got one more.
Sure, we're going to do one in the future. We talk a lot on Skype, but it's my belief at the entrance to an necropolis. Would they have varied from that in the most important necropolis in all of Egypt? I doubt it. Let's talk about John Anthony West here, one of the most important people in my research. If I never would have read some of his work, I probably would have never got interested in ancient Egypt and the deep mysteries and making videos in the first place. Let's just listen to him talk about a bunch of things right down here in front of the Sphinx, including some mysteries about the age here.
And another, a papyrus, rather fragmentary, but both these documents talk about long earlier periods where Egypt was ruled first by the Necheru, that is to say the gods themselves, the gods to be understood not as figments of the superstitious imagination, but as the embodiments or manifestations of cosmic principles. And then almost as an afterthought, at the very end of this long chapter, said, of course, the Great Sphinx of Giza shows unmistakable signs of aquatic erosion, water weathering. And when I read that, I was working on my own book, Serpent in the Sky, which is designed to introduce the English-speaking people to Schwaller's work, which was only in French at that time and impenetrable in any language, pretty much. You tried reading unadulterated Schwaller. It's like taking your first driving lesson in a Ferrari. Anyhow, that registered with me because everything else that he was talking about was a textual argument, interesting certainly, but not science. The water weathering of the Sphinx was potentially science. And if you could prove that, you could prove something very important. It's not just a quibble amongst academics, because I think you get the sense here, I don't think anybody would argue, or probably not argue much, that the Great Sphinx is probably the greatest statue on Earth. If it's proven that the Sphinx is weathered by water, and it's proven that it dates, we can't date it yet specifically, but it's somewhere older than 10,000 BC, it means that everything you've ever learned in any school, anywhere in the world, about the origins of human civilization is completely wrong. I mean, not only is it's totally wrong, and it's reversed. In other words, they could do what we can't do. Yeah, we can build hydrogen bombs.
And that is a big thing to hold on to right there, because I mean, there's stuff like the Ionis temple in Turkey that is something people should take a look at. I mean, not just Göbekli Tepe. There's so many other things in that area. It's ancient Armenia. It is the place where the biblical Noah basically landed with his 2 sons and started a civilization. You should check into the fact that their city that they built with their own hands was uncovered back in the 70s and then reburied once they figured out how old it could be, which is absolutely mind-bending. And you can find more on that through Matthew LaCroix and his work, and there's what records you can still find of the dig back in the 70s. But I'll continue on with John Anthony West here. Whoa, what did I just do?
And we've got bobblehead dolls and striped toothpaste and all kinds of wonderful things like that. Well, we couldn't build a temple like that even if we wanted to, and we don't want to. But it still wasn't science because I'm not a scientist. It turned out I did a pretty good job. I made only a couple of big mistakes. It took another 10 years before I finally encountered Robert Schoch, my now good friend and colleague, who was a young but very impeccably credentialed geologist with sort of triple PhD from Yale in geology, geophysics, and paleontology. And it took another more long story to get him interested enough to come to Egypt with me to take a look at the weathering and to pronounce on whether or not it was indeed water weathered. And it was funny, he used this when he first walked in. We came in, and as you see, this is pretty impressive to come down here. And it was just, I forget exactly how we got permission or if we bakshished our way in. We were in all by ourselves early in the morning, and Schoch walked around with me, and okay, follow me now. So we got to about here, and so anybody else, you're walking around here, if you weren't with me, you wouldn't probably think twice to look at the side wall there. You'd be looking at the Sphinx, at the art, not at the rocks. Schoch is a geologist, so what he's looking at are the rocks. And he walked in and he got a view of this here, a little bit closer than we are now. And he all of a sudden stopped and he said, wow. He said, these rocks look like they're hundreds of thousands of years old. And he said, ooh, don't quote me on that. now 20, what's it, more than 20 years later, because he hadn't yet conceded, as it were, that it had to be water weathering. Initially, he couldn't believe that the geologists hadn't noticed that before because it was so absolutely obvious. But now he's perfectly okay with maybe not hundreds of thousands, but old beyond any possible, impossible to place within any kind of a contemporary framework. In one sense, you could say that argument is, so what? What does it have to do with the price of eggs or the price of Ferraris or anything like that? Actually, a lot. I don't think there's anyone here who thinks other than that we're living in a lunatic asylum, which is breaking apart as we watch it. But at the end of a couple of weeks here, what you end up with is an unshakable understanding of the difference between civilization and progress. They're almost antithetical, damn near. And you don't think of that otherwise because we're all brought up to think that we're the smartest people that ever were. After a couple of weeks here, you get to understand that, yeah, we can do certain technological things that probably they couldn't do, but they wouldn't have wanted to do. And they not only can do things, they did things that were infinitely more important, and they did them for 3,000 years. I mean, we've had our own society, at least in America, going for a couple of hundred years, and it's coming apart at the seams. Obviously, every time you pick up the newspaper, there's something that's making it worse.
No.
All right, I'm going to just end this on well, I want to say be sure, since I didn't get permission to use the footage from Chuck's whoever's taken over his legacy account or whatever, but I want to make sure everyone stops over and checks out the original videos at CF Apps 7865. That's the channel. Just search for that on YouTube and you should find it, no problem. It's alright. Also in the description on the YouTube version at least, and hopefully they'll be alright with me wanting to preserve his legacy, because I feel he was a truly great man, and he really worked hard doing the research. And I know with the joy that it brought me to wake up every day and see his videos, and just get that whole experience, that people everywhere should be able to enjoy it and know that his work even exists. And definitely wanted to also see if you guys like this this episode. I just kind of winged it. I wasn't entirely prepared, but I just want to throw together something that wasn't too long, but had, you know, the meat and potatoes of what I believe people should know. So if you like it, you know, let me know in the comments, give it a like, whatever, subscribe or not, because I mean, I don't want to drive people insane with all the game streaming I do, or the random other stuff, if you're only into the alternative history, or real history I should say, scene. But if you want to, go ahead and subscribe. But I'll definitely be doing a video at some point soon on, like I said before, the unfinished pyramids, which is a travesty what's being done to some of them by the Egyptian government right now. And with that, I'll let you all go. Peace.
Is it the stratosphere, man? Is it the ionosphere, with the madness and the mania as one guiding force?
Don't forget to